The first reading of my father's will took place on a rainy Tuesday in the penthouse of the Sterling Tower, a glass monolith that pierced the Manhattan skyline like a dagger aimed at God. I sat in the leather chair that had once been his, surrounded by my siblings. Marcus, the golden child who had run the company into the ground. Eleanor, the philanthropist whose charities were fronts for money laundering. And Julian, the youngest, whose addictions had cost him everything but his bitterness. The lawyer, a silver-haired vulture named Harrison Kane, adjusted his glasses and began to read. The document was standard at first. Bequests to charities, trusts for grandchildren, the usual performative generosity of a man who had spent his life accumulating wealth at the expense of everyone else. Then Harrison reached the final clause, and his face went pale. To my children I leave the following. Alexander shall receive the entirety of Sterling Industries, including all subsidiaries, assets, and intellectual property. Marcus shall receive the family estate in the Hamptons and a trust fund of $50 million. Eleanor shall receive the art collection and the Paris apartment. Julian shall receive a modest annuity of $100,000 per year, payable upon completion of a rehabilitation program of my choosing. The room erupted. Marcus slammed his fist on the table. Eleanor screamed. Julian laughed, a hollow, bitter sound that echoed through the glass walls. I sat in stunned silence, unable to process what I had just heard. My father had given me everything. I was the youngest, the least experienced, the one he had always dismissed as a dreamer. And now he had made me the sole heir to his trillion-dollar empire. There must be a mistake, I said, my voice trembling. Harrison shook his head. There's no mistake, Alexander. Your father was very clear. The will is legally binding. But there's a condition. The will must be read again in 30 days. If any of you can prove that you deserve a different share, the distribution can be revised. Marcus's eyes narrowed. Revised how? By presenting evidence that the current distribution is unjust, by proving that you have been wronged, by proving that your father made a mistake. The room fell silent. We all knew what that meant. The will was not a document. It was a trap designed to force us to destroy each other. And over the next 30 days, we would learn just how deep that trap went. I spent the first week trying to understand why my father had chosen me. I had never been the favorite. Marcus was the heir apparent, the one who had been groomed from birth to take over. Eleanor was the public face of the family, the one who had built a reputation that protected the company from scandal. Julian was the tragedy, the cautionary tale that made the rest of us look better by comparison. And me? I was the invisible one, the middle child who had been shunted aside, forgotten, overlooked. But my father had seen something in me that no one else had, or so I told myself. The second week, I received an anonymous letter. It was typed on a machine so old that the letters were uneven, the ink smudged in places. The message was simple. The will is a lie. Your father never wrote it. Read it again. You'll see. I read the will again, and each time I saw something different. The first reading had named me as the primary heir. The second reading named Marcus. The third named Eleanor. The fourth named Julian. I called Harrison Kane in a panic. The will is changing, I said. Every time I read it, the distribution is different. He was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice colder than I had ever heard it. "It's alive, Alexander. That was your father's final gift to you all. The will is not a document, it is a game, and the rules change every time you play. He wanted you to fight, he wanted you to destroy each other, and he wanted to see which one of you would survive." The truth hit me like a physical blow. My father had not left us an inheritance, he had left us a battlefield, and the only way to win was to become the monster he had always been. I gathered my siblings in the library of the family estate. The room was lined with books that no one had ever read, leather-bound tomes that had been bought by the yard to impress visitors. I showed them my copies of the will, each one different, each one contradictory. Marcus stared at them, his face pale. "This is impossible," he said. "Documents don't change." "They don't," I agreed, "unless they were designed to, unless the entire thing is a psychological experiment." Eleanor laughed, a brittle sound that shattered the silence. "Of course it is. He was always playing games. He loved watching us suffer. He loved watching us tear each other apart." Julian said nothing. He just stared at the papers, his eyes hollow, his hands trembling. "I have a theory," I continued. "I think the will is digital. I think it's being manipulated in real time by someone inside the system, someone who has access to the legal database, someone who wants us to destroy each other." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "Who?" I looked at each of them in turn. "I don't know, but I'm going to find out." I hired a forensic team to analyze the documents. They worked for days, cross-referencing the timestamps, the digital signatures, the metadata, and they found something that changed everything. The will was being changed by a ghost, a digital signature that belonged to someone who had been dead for years. Our mother, the woman who had died in a car accident decades ago, a tragedy that had never been fully explained. Her digital signature was embedded in the will, a code that was updating the document every time someone opened it. She was not dead, or rather, she had not been dead when the will was written. She had been alive. She had been orchestrating the entire thing from the shadows, and she had been waiting for the moment when we would finally uncover the truth. The revelation sent shockwaves through the family. Our mother, the woman we had mourned for decades, had been alive all along. She had faked her death to escape my father's control. She had been hiding in plain sight, watching us, manipulating us, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And that moment was now. I found her in a small town in Vermont, living under an assumed name. She was older, grayer, but her eyes were the same, sharp, calculating, full of a fire that had never been extinguished. "You're alive," I said, my voice barely a whisper. She nodded. "I've been waiting for this day for a long time, Alexander. I knew you would find me." "Why did you do it? Why did you leave us?" She looked at me with an expression that was part sorrow, part rage. "Because your father was a monster. He was going to destroy all of you. I had to protect you. I had to give you a chance to escape." "But you didn't escape. You ran. You left us with him." Her eyes blazed. "I didn't leave you. I stayed. I stayed in the shadows, pulling the strings, making sure that he didn't destroy you completely. The will was my creation. I wrote it. I programmed it. I made sure that it would change, that it would force you to see the truth." I stared at her, my mind reeling. "What truth?" "The truth that your father was not your father. The truth that he stole you from your real family. The truth that you are not Sterlings. You are Vances, the family he destroyed, the family he erased from history. The words hit me like a tsunami. I was not Alexander Sterling. I was someone else, someone whose identity had been stolen before I could even speak. My mother was not my mother. My father was not my father. My entire life was a lie. I returned to the city, my mind shattered, my soul adrift. I gathered my siblings, but I didn't tell them the truth. Not yet. They weren't ready. I needed to understand the full scope of the conspiracy before I could reveal it. I hired a private investigator, a woman named Sarah Bennett, who had a reputation for unraveling the most tangled webs. Sarah was brilliant, relentless, and she had her own reasons for hating my father. Her father had been one of his victims, a business partner who had been ruined and driven to suicide. "Your mother is right," Sarah told me after weeks of digging. "You are not Sterlings. You are Vances." The Vance family was a dynasty in its own right, a shipping empire that rivaled your father's. But your father wanted it all. He orchestrated the destruction of the Vances. He killed the patriarch, framed the heirs, and stole the children. You were the children. You were raised as Sterlings, but you are Vances by blood. I felt the world tilt beneath my feet. My father was not just a monster, he was a thief. He had stolen our lives, our identities, our futures, and he had done it to build an empire that was never meant to be his. "What do I do now?" I asked. Sarah's eyes were cold. "You destroy him, not his memory, his legacy. You expose the truth. You give the empire back to the Vances. You give it back to yourselves." I nodded slowly. The revenge was not just mine, it was all of ours, and I would not fail. I called my siblings together in the library. I told them the truth. I showed them the evidence. I told them that our mother was alive, that our father was a thief, that our entire lives had been built on a foundation of lies. Marcus was the first to react, his face twisted with rage. "I don't believe you. This is a trick. You're trying to steal the inheritance." I shook my head. "There is no inheritance, Marcus. There never was. It was always stolen, and we are the ones who were stolen." Eleanor wept. Julian was silent, but in their eyes I saw something else, something that I hadn't expected. Relief. Relief that they were not the monsters they had thought they were. Relief that the cruelty they had suffered was not their fault. Relief that there was a path forward, a path that led away from the shadow of our father. We made a pact. We would expose the truth. We would destroy the empire. We would reclaim our identity, and we would do it together. It was the first time in our lives that we had ever cooperated on anything. The campaign was brutal. We released the evidence to every major news outlet. We exposed my father's crimes, the theft, the murder, the manipulation. We revealed the truth about the Vances, the family he had destroyed. The world was shocked. The empire crumbled. The board was indicted. My father's legacy was obliterated. But the final twist was still waiting. In the chaos, I discovered a hidden file in my father's personal database. It was a confession, written in his own hand, describing everything he had done. But there was a final line that changed everything. I didn't steal the Vances' children. I saved them. Their father was going to kill them. He was a monster, worse than me. I took them to protect them, and I raised them as my own because no one else would. The confession was a bombshell. It didn't exonerate him, but it complicated everything. He was a monster, yes, but he had also been a savior. The Vance's father had been a tyrant, a man who had tortured his own children. My father had rescued us from a fate worse than death. The revenge I had sought was not against the villain. It was against the man who had tried to be a hero, even if he had failed miserably. I wrestled with the revelation for weeks. My father was not innocent, but he was not entirely guilty either. He had made terrible choices, but he had made them in a context that I couldn't fully understand. I needed to know more. I needed to find the truth. I tracked down the surviving members of the Vance family, the ones who had escaped my father's purge. They were scattered across the world, living in obscurity, hiding from the shadow of their own history. One of them was an old man named Elias, who had been a child when the empire fell. He remembered everything. "Your father was right," Elias told me. "My father was a monster. He killed my mother. He tried to kill me. Your father saved me. He took me in. He gave me a new life." I stared at him, my mind reeling. Then why did he destroy the empire? Why did he steal everything? Elias's eyes were sad. Because he was a monster too. He was just a different kind of monster. He saved us, but he also used us. He built his empire on our suffering. He gave us a new life, but he also took our identity. He was both hero and villain, and I don't know which one he truly was. The truth was more complicated than I had ever imagined. My father was not a simple villain. He was a complex, contradictory figure, a man who had done terrible things for what he believed were noble reasons. And I had to make peace with that, not for his sake, for mine. I made a decision. I would not destroy my father's legacy completely. I would redeem it. I would use the empire to build something new, something that honored the victims and the survivors alike. I would create a foundation that helped families torn apart by corporate greed. I would fund research into identity theft, into the psychology of power, into the ways that families could heal from the wounds inflicted by their own histories. My siblings were furious. They wanted blood. They wanted destruction. But I stood firm. "This is not about revenge," I told them. "This is about justice. And justice is not the same as vengeance." We argued for days, but in the end, they agreed. Not because they believed in my vision, because they had no choice. The empire was mine, and I would do with it what I believed was right. The will that changed every time it was read became the symbol of our family's transformation. It was no longer a weapon. It was a reminder of the lies we had told, the truths we had uncovered, and the future we were building together. I kept a copy of the original will in my office, a constant reminder of the game my father had played. But I also kept a copy of the confession, the one that revealed the complexity of his character. I read them both every day, not to punish myself, to remind myself that the truth is never simple, that revenge is never clean, and that the only way to move forward is to embrace the messiness of it all. The Sterling Vance Foundation became one of the most respected organizations in the world. It helped thousands of families, healed wounds that had been festering for generations, and built a legacy that was worthy of both the Sterlings and the Vances. My siblings found their own paths. Marcus became a philanthropist, using his business skills to help others. Eleanor started a charity that actually helped people, not just her reputation. Julian got sober, became a counselor, and helped others overcome their addictions. And I became something I had never expected to be: a leader, a healer, a man who had turned his family's curse into a blessing. The revenge was not against my father. It was against the cycle of hatred that had consumed our family for generations, and we had broken it together as a family. The final twist came years later, when I was old and gray. I received a letter from a lawyer I had never met, a man who claimed to represent my father's final wishes. The letter was brief, barely a paragraph. "Alexander, if you're reading this, you've done what I could never do. You've broken the cycle. You've built something new. I am proud of you. I know that doesn't mean much coming from me, but it's true. I was wrong about you. I was wrong about everything. Forgive me, not because I deserve it, because you deserve peace." I read the letter 100 times, and then I burned it, not out of anger, out of acceptance. My father was gone. His legacy was gone. But the lessons he had taught me, the lessons about power, about truth, about the cost of ambition, would stay with me forever. The will that changed every time it was read had finally stopped changing. It had become what it was always meant to be, a testament to the power of redemption. And I, the heir who had refused to destroy, had become the architect of something far more valuable than any fortune: a legacy of love, a legacy of truth, a legacy that would outlast any empire. The revenge was complete, but not in the way I had imagined. It was not about destruction, it was about creation. And in creating something new, I had finally found the peace that had eluded me for so long. The peace that came from letting go. The peace that came from forgiving. The peace that came from being free.